Coming up on BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, the Cougar Hoopsters open the season with 3 games in 4 days and win them all. Now another busy week begins back east where we are live with Coach Pope and Matt Harms next.
This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried & Jensen. And now, your host, the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell.
Good evening, Cougar basketball fans. We are not live in Studio C because we are in the Mohegan Sun Resort in Connecticut. Welcome inside our studio for the night as we bring you a socially distanced hour of BYU basketball, looking back at a successful start to the season and a look at the week ahead for the Cougar Hoopsters. Coming up on tonight's show, live from Connecticut, we'll recap the wins in BYU's first 3-0 start to a season since 2016. We'll preview the Legends Classic here in Connecticut and sneak a peek at what's coming up in the Spectrum on Saturday. Tonight's Cougar Q&A gives us the good word on Richard Harward, and newcomer Matt Harms joins us live here at the Mohegan Sun. Well, we're not in the same room, but we are in the same venue. So through the miracle of technology, we say hello to the head coach of the Cougars, Mark Pope.
I can't hear anything. Greg, I can see your lips talking in the TV, but I cannot hear a word you're saying.
Well, Coach Pope, I know. If you could hear me.
Wait, he said, no, Greg, I'm going to watch you talk. I'm going to read your lips right now. Go ahead. I got this.
We think Coach Pope is going to talk about how excited he is to be 3-0. 3-0.
Okay, so I think Greg Wrubell just asked me what I think about us starting the season 3-0. Guys, we're trying. I'm sorry. We're really excited about the start of the season. We knew it was going to be a challenge. We know those 3 games and 4 nights were going to be really tough. 2 of them were in-state rivalries, which are always tough. And then we played a really, really defensive-minded New Orleans team. And so I was really grateful that we got through them. We learned a lot about our team. We learned a lot about areas where we need to get better. We got to face 3 very different opponents. Of course, the most costly thing was losing Gavin, which is just heartbreaking to us. But aside from that, I thought it was all really, really positive.
So Coach Pope can't hear me right now. So we're going to see how good he is at guessing once again. As we're going to go through the highlights of last week's 3 games, we're going to see guys making baskets, and we're going to see Coach Pope talk about all of it as the Cougars opened up with 3 wins last week.
Okay, so I didn't understand all of it, but I did understand the 3-point shooting. I believe Greg was asking about 3-point shooting. Right now we're looking at Westminster highlights. I was really proud of how our guys shot the ball all weekend. We're going to continue to get better sharing the ball, but it was nice. All these guys are finishing every shot. They're owning every shot. For the most part, we're working hard to earn shots for each other, and it's fun. I mean, anytime you set an all-time record in the Marriott Center with 18 made threes, the first time ever that happened in the Marriott Center, it's pretty awesome. I can hear music in the background.
We're seeing BYU and Westminster from last week, game 1 of 3 games in 4 days for BYU, and Caleb Lohner making his debut for the Cougs, and I know that Coach Pope was pleased with how Caleb came out of the chutes.
Gavin Baxter was playing at such a high level for us. He's going to have an unbelievable career. It's just going to be put on hold for 1 more year. He's going to get bigger and stronger and come back better than ever. It was pretty awesome in this game.
18th 3 of that night, and that ties a Marriott Center record and a BYU team record. So BYU a winner over Westminster, 108-59 on opening night. And so much for Coach Pope to like about the way the Cougars opened the 2020-21 season, opening it on time, and things were just fine at the Marriott Center on night number 1. Now, there weren't a lot of fans in the stands. We saw families of coaches and players primarily. It was basketball again, and that's what we wanted more than anything after the way things went in the spring, was to get back in the building and see the Cougars, doing what they do under Coach Pope and making a ton of threes, scoring the ball really well, playing good defense, and setting things up for night number 2, which I think we'll get to right now as we show BYU and New Orleans. It was on Thanksgiving night. It was game number 2, 2 games in 2 nights. Highlights and stats presented by Intermountain Healthcare.
It was really nice to go from Westminster to New Orleans just because we got two incredibly different looks. Westminster was kind of a little more conservative defensively, and New Orleans was trying to get into every single passing lane. Westminster was trying to get to shots, and New Orleans was trying desperately to get to the rim. And so it gave us a real look at what we could do. Caleb Lohner has been spectacular on the glass. That was actually his second consecutive offensive rebounder off that free throw, and he put it back and finished. And we got a bunch of contributions from a lot of different guys.
Connor Harding, solid start to his season.
You know, we really trust Connor Harding in the post. We'll continue to look for him there. He's really capable and makes great plays. Our guys were really good in transition. Sharing the ball and making plays for each other were all things that were really good looks for us. And Alex Barcelo's been playing at such an elite
making
level.
a name for himself. Yeah, Big Rich with offensive rebounds and stickbacks. That's going to be a strength of his game. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Rich, I think in the game had 6 offensive rebounds on his own. After that game, he was the #1 offensive rebounding percentage player in the country, and he came off the bench. So he had a huge impact, and he's going to be really fun for us to watch all season long. First double-double for Richard Harward in a BYU uniform, but he had a few at UVU, Coach. Yeah, he was a double-double machine at Utah Valley. He, we've talked about his story, but he kind of sat for us for a year and a half, and then we had an injury, and he needed to come bail us out, checked into the game, and had his first double-double in a 20-point comeback win against Seattle University, and then was a double-double machine the entire rest of the year. He's just he's got an intensity about him and a physicality that's really, really special. I'm glad you can hear me now, and I appreciate you for dealing with the pantomime to get us through the first few minutes of highlights there. Well done. You kind of took over and ran with it, and I really do appreciate you for picking it up and carrying it, but I think we're on the same page right now. Yeah, this is much better. And might I add, why can't we get these seats in the studio? I mean, these are fantastic. We can make the show, if we had these seats, we could make the show 3 hours long. Because we'll be so comfortable. Let's go to Utah Valley highlights. Game 3 of the season. 3 games in 4 days for BYU. The Wolverines into the Marriott Center on Saturday night. And we got to see Matt Harms for the first time. We'll see him in a second. But this, of course, was a game being played without Gavin Baxter. Kind of a downbeat note. You lose Gavin. Didn't have him for this one, and you won't have him for the year. Yeah, it was, of course, we talked about that. It just was so heartbreaking for all of us to see Gavin go down. And this is a really intense rivalry, this BYU-UVU matchup. And it's been fun to watch what Mark has done at UVU. He's really building a terrific roster and a great team, and he's going to do special things there. And this game is going to be increasingly competitive every single year. And it was fun to watch the guys fight. I mean, both sides were kind of laying it all out there and diving on a floor for loose balls and slapping and grabbing and scratching, and that's what happens in these in-state games. And we actually learned a lot about ourselves too. Their pressure affected us. They ran a little kind of 1-2-2, three-quarter, half-court trap that got us a little sideways. They changed defenses from a 2-3 to a 1-3-1 to man-to-man and kind of changed up some man looks. And so it was an unbelievable experience for our guys to have a chance to kind of play against a changing defense a lot. They responded really, really well. How about Big Rich going deep in the toolbox there? Yeah, I was really proud of our bigs. We knew that we had a huge challenge coming into the game with this Ferdaz Amac, who in his first game had 24 and 18 in limited minutes. And so the guys really took it upon themselves to kind of be focused in on him, all 3 of our frontline guys, and they did a great job both on the offensive and defensive end. So there it is, BYU defeating UVU at home and opening up 3-0 for the first time since 2016-17. Shooting a really high number through the first 3 games is Alex Barcelo. We saw what he could do last year in a complementary role. And now this year, he's being asked to carry a lot more weight, do more, and probably score more. His career high last year for BYU was 18. He's already scored more than 18 in all 3 games he's played so far. And, Coach, we're going to go close-up on Alex Barcelo and just show a few highlights from last week, a few plays he makes both with the ball and without the ball. And you can tell us what makes him so special. Yeah, so Alex has got a really good sense of what we're trying to do.
He was the third highest percentage three-point shooter in the country last year, and he certainly continued shooting the ball at a great clip. He's got a great sense of kind of space. He's using a rim runner a lot more than we did last year. We're asking our bigs to be really, really good rim runners. And not only is he good at delivering a pass to those guys in transition to the post, but he's also really good at seeing when they've got a seal and he can actually make a play to the rim like he just did there. He's got a good feel kind of in our weak continuity offense about when he's going to come off a flow or an over or whether he's going to hide in the corner. And he's great, obviously, at finding space. He was great at finding space last year also in terms of finding space when there's penetration, either by the pass or by the bounce. And he just shoots it at such a high level. The great thing about his shooting is it's reproducible every game. So he's playing at a really high level. Most impressive for me was that he had those 3 games in 4 nights, and he's carrying such a huge load for this team. And he was actually able to do it for a lot of minutes logged over the course of 4 nights. So we have high expectations for him all season long, and so far he's really delivered.
Inside the Numbers was presented by Mountain America Credit Union as we look at the great start to a season Alex is off to. And it wasn't just Alex, Coach, but he was hitting the deck a lot on the opening weekend. There was a lot of hustle on display, and he took hits. He hit the floor hard. At the very end of the Utah Valley game, he lands on his hip, and I was worried about him then. But he was just laying it all out there last week. How has his body recovered for the 2 games in 2 days coming up here this week?
Yeah, he's recovered really well. He's such a tough kid, and the nice thing about AB is you see him just taking a beating every single game, and now teams are really keying on him and trying to get as physical as they can with him. And so I in my mind, I'm like, I got to protect him. I got to keep him safe. And then I remember that, Alex, he's going to play whether he's healthy or hurt. I mean, he finished the season last year with a broken hand. So, he just he's going to force his way through all the physicality and all the contact. And I know he's going to respond really well.
So we are live at the Mohegan Sun Resort here in Uncasville, Connecticut, and it's the first road trip for BYU after opening up at the Marriott Center with those first 3. Coach Pope, can you give us a little bit of insight into how this first pandemic era road trip has gone for you guys so far?
Yeah, it's been super interesting. So we the protocol here is really, really tight. And I'll give you some details. We landed, we got on a bus, drove straight here. We were all spaced out on the bus. We were spaced out on the plane. Outside of 6 feet, everybody masked up the entire time, spaced out the same way. On the bus, we arrived here. They kind of staggered us out of the bus, and we went through a back entrance and went immediately to testing. So we went and took a PCR test immediately when we got here, and then they sent us to our rooms, and we were quarantined until we got those test results back. So we were hoping to get out of our rooms this morning at 9 a.m. The test actually didn't come back till about 11:30. And so the guys were just stuck in their rooms. We weren't allowed to get out. We weren't allowed to meet as a staff. We did everything last night and this morning via Zoom, including our performance team of Rob Ramos and Eric Shork, delivering bands and some workout equipment to each of our guys' rooms so they could do a little bit of work in their rooms this morning. And then we finally got the okay to exit quarantine and go meet just before we had our last kind of time before we could go practice. So we got out of quarantine 11:45, went down, had a film session with the team, did a little walkthrough, had a quick bite to eat, and then walked straight over to the arena, which is right here on the Mohegan Sun complex. So we just walked through tunnels to get there and had a terrific practice. The only hiccup was at 11:30, as we're all trying to head down, I got word that Kobe Lee's test was inconclusive. So we had to call Kobe and tell him to stay in his room, that he wouldn't be allowed to come down to practice, that they were doing a rapid second test to just analyze it. And so Kobe was sweating bullets for about 15 minutes. Then they came back with the negative, and he got to rejoin the team. So we were super great for that. And the crazy thing is Kobe had so much juice in practice today. I think he was just so relieved He was terrified, so he had a great practice. And then we finished practice, came home, a set of new meetings, some work as a team in the conference room, just rolling out, and some rehab with Coach Shork. And the guys just finished team meal, and now they're in bed resting for a huge day tomorrow.
Now, Coach Pope, you and the players and staffers are all considered inside the bubble here in Bubbleville. I'm considered outside the bubble, but even broadcasters had to get our tests back negative before we could come and join you in the venue. So even though we're not going to be in the same space as you, even the media and the broadcasters had to get those same tests back to clear us to come, even though we have the outside the bubble designation. We're in the bubble of Bubbleville, and just glad to be here, quite frankly. And so I'm looking forward to it, too. 2 games in 2 days. The opponent for the second game is already known, and it has changed, and we'll talk about that as we continue here on the program. Let's get to our first break here at the Mohegan Sun. For your day-to-day Cougar sports play-by-play, watch BYU Sports Nation with Spencer Linton and Jerem Jordan. Jerem's with me here in Connecticut, weekdays at noon Eastern on BYUtv and BYU Radio. When we come back, I'll look ahead to the lineup at the Legends Classic here in Connecticut. This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope live from the Mohegan Sun.
BYU Basketball with Mark Pope is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen, helping Utah families for over 30 years. Intermountain Healthcare, always here for you. Mountain America Credit Union, guiding you forward. Smith's, fresh for everyone. And by Deseret News.
Welcome back to BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried and Jensen. Here's the broadcast schedule for this week. 3 games in 5 days for the Cougs. Starting tomorrow, BYU tipping it off against USC in the Roman Legends Classic tomorrow. That's 2:30 Eastern, 12:30 Mountain on ESPN2. The pregame on BYU Radio starts 1 hour before tip-off with Cougar Pregame Live. And that, again, starts a busy week for BYU. When the Cougars originally were set for the Legends Classic, it was going to be USC on Tuesday and then either UConn or Vanderbilt on Thursday. Winners playing winners, losers playing losers. Well, Vanderbilt pulled out of the tournament. UConn was then slated to play USC on Thursday. St. John's was already here at Bubbleville and have now done a deal with you guys, Coach Pope, to play you on Wednesday. So USC Tuesday we know. And now BYU St. John's the very next day, we also know. And St. John's improved to 3-0 by beating Boston College tonight.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast things change. We got on the plane thinking we were going to play Tuesday, Thursday, some grouping of UConn, Vanderbilt, and USC. And we got off the plane, and it was going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, USC, UConn. And then we went through about 10 different scenarios. And finally, what it's ended up as of right now is USC St. John's. We'll see if that holds. If it does, we'll be really excited because we'll be playing 2 great teams and 2 absolutely terrific coaches, and it'll be a real challenge for us doing it in back-to-back nights.
Let's know the foe a little bit more, presented by Qualtrics. Now we'll start with the USC Trojans, coached by Andy Enfield. He's having to rebuild a little bit with this year's roster, but doing it with some pretty nice pieces, including Evan Mobley, who pretty much everyone agrees is one of the top 5 high school players in the country and a future lottery guy. Yeah,
in fact, both the Mobley brothers are at USC. Isaiah is a sophomore and Evan's a freshman. And they are incredibly long and athletic and explosive. They can really do everything on the floor. So those 2 brothers, and they pass the ball so well, are starting at the 4 and 5. And then their backcourt trio is really explosive as well, can really, really shoot the ball. The thing that stands out when you watch the film on this team out of their first 2 games is 1 through 5, they really pass the ball exceptionally well, and they're a dangerous offensive team. The other thing that really stands out is that they are just destroying teams on the glass. So Isaiah Mobley by himself is averaging 6 offensive rebounds a game by himself. Isaiah White, a former player of mine at Utah Valley, is averaging 4 offensive rebounds a game. So that just between 2 players, that's 10 offensive rebounds a game. So between their ability to pass the ball, which is so extraordinary, how their offense flows, they really use each other, the talent they have, and then how they crash the offensive glass. It's an incredibly skilled and dangerous team.
Now, no players are left from the last time that BYU and USC faced off 4 seasons ago. Coach Enfield, of course, was there for USC. But there is a familiar face beyond Isaiah White, who was at UVU, and that's Taj Edey. He's a Santa Clara transfer that is now playing for USC.
Yeah, Taj, a terrific player. He's a lightning-quick kind of combo guard, a little bit of a score-first capability, if not straight-up mentality. Is a terrific defensive player, and he's part of that backcourt that's so explosive.
All right, it's a team that you didn't think you'd be playing when you got on the plane to get out here, even when you got out here. But we now know that St. John's, as you've alluded to, is the second opponent, and it'll be back-to-back days. St. John's will have a day of rest because they played tonight, won. They'll rest tomorrow and then play you on Wednesday. But you'll be going back-to-back. It's BYU and the Red Storm of St. John's. I don't know how much you know. What do you know?
Yeah, we're really excited about it. It all starts with Mike Anderson. He's one of the finest human beings in all of coaching. He's universally respected. He's just a kind-hearted, do it the right way, extraordinary coach and a great man. In a little quiet moments, he's actually been a super generous mentor to me, if even just from a distance. And so I'm really grateful to face them and the story of St. John's program. It's going to be a big challenge for us. They're kind of 40 minutes of chaos. They're going to press on every single possession. They're going to force us kind of out of everything we do, and we're going to have to be creative and make great decisions and kind of make some progress in terms of us facing pressure. This will be pressure on an epic level like we haven't seen so far this season.
And that'll be Wednesday at 5 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock in the Mountain Time Zone, 2 o'clock for the radio pregame. So you go back-to-back at the Legends Classic. Now, since the tournament here, or the games, they now call them showcase games since it's not a true tournament format anymore, the games end a day early for you here. That does get you back home with an extra day of prep for a tall task on the weekend, because the week will conclude at the Spectrum in Logan, BYU and Utah State, another in-state game. And that'll be Saturday night. Yeah,
come on. It's what a great rivalry game this BYU-Utah State game is. What Craig Smith has done there over the course of the last 2+ years has just been beyond exceptional. They have a really, really formidable front line that has great depth to it and great size. They also are unbelievable on the offensive glass. And a young freshman point guard, combo guard that's kind of probably going to take the Mountain West by storm this year. Really, really incredibly well-coached team. It's always tough to play up in Logan, and so it's going to be another massive challenge. They just keep coming, guys. We talked about this when we announced the schedule. It doesn't stop, and so we got our work cut out for us this week. We're really, really excited about it.
Aggies building off their big three, which this year, without Sam Merrill, is Neemias Queta, Justin Bean, Brock Miller. Those guys kind of make it go.
Yeah, and all veteran guys that have won 2 straight WAC tournament championships. They know how to play. They're really, really familiar with the way Craig plays. Motion offense, sets he runs, a little bit of changing defense also for them. So, again, he's putting together another great team up there, and it's going to be fun. In-state game number 3. It'll be our 3rd in-state game in our first 6 games, so let's go.
Before we leave Utah State, the last pick in the NBA draft was Sam Merrill at the back end of round 2. When you were playing for and getting ready for Sam Merrill, were you seeing a pro?
Yeah, I mean, Sam is he's just such a terrific, talented player. Can really, really make shots, got an incredibly high basketball IQ, makes the right play all the time, is a born and raised Utah basketball player, and he's gonna, we're cheering for him. It's a really fun week. Yoli started with workouts today with Washington. Jake starts tomorrow with the Jazz. I assume Sam starts maybe tomorrow with the Celtics or today. But we have really, really terrific representation from the state of Utah in the graduating classes here in the NBA right now. It's awesome.
Absolutely. All right, let's take a break. We are from the Mohegan Sun Resort here in Connecticut, and after our break, we'll have this week's Cougar Q&A, plus your questions for Coach Pope from social media. This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope.
BYU Basketball with Mark Pope is brought to you by Siegfried and Jensen, helping Utah families for over 30 years. Intermountain Healthcare, always here for you. Mountain America Credit Union, guiding you forward. Smith's, fresh for everyone. And by Deseret News.
Checking in on our Cougars in the pros, presented by the Deseret News. Elijah Bryant scoring 25 yesterday for Maccabi Tel Aviv in a 98-81 win. Led all scorers, also added 6 boards and 4 helpers. Brandon Davies scoring 6 for FC Barcelona, his last time out. Eric Mika, 8 points, 8 rebounds in his last outing for Partizan NIS out of Serbia. And Coach Pope updating us on the NBA guys during our last segment as well. It is time now for this week's Cougar Q&A presented by Zions Bank. For a financial slam dunk, Zions Bank is for you. And tonight we get to know Rich Harward, the newcomer, Richard Harward. They call him Big Rich, who had a big weekend in BYU opening up 3-0.
I would say that Rich is probably the heart of this team.
When he's on that court, man, watch out. Whether that's him rebounding or him going up for a quick layup off the pick and roll, you don't want to get caught by one of his elbows.
He's talking smack all the time, but it's like you can't disagree with what he's saying because he's going to put you on the floor to prove his point.
A guy that's extremely educated and extremely smart, which you really wouldn't expect from a guy that brings that much hype on the court at all times, to be off the court, just be an extremely intelligent guy.
He's always doing something different than everyone else, and that's what makes him great.
He's in guys' faces. He's sprinting the court end to end in the weight room. He's just always going hard. Like, this dude has never-ending energy.
He likes to talk about conspiracy theories.
He's just true to himself. Like, the things that he likes them, and he's not going to care what other people think about him.
And not only has he just worked so hard to become the player that he is, but also he's so funny. I mean, he's definitely one of the more vocal guys on the team.
Over at Utah Valley, he was one of the quietest dudes on the team, and I come here now, and he's probably the loudest dude on the team.
You just want Rick to be your teammate because he's going to, he got your back all the time, no matter what.
He might be fierce, he might have a lot of energy on the court, but once it comes off the court, he's a big, friendly giant.
He might look big and scary on the outside. He's huge, but he really is one of the most genuine people I've ever met.
We got a pretty well-rounded picture of Big Rich there, Coach.
I love these segments, man. Those are really good. I like hearing the guys describe their teammates because that's exactly who Rich is. From having a huge heart to being a little bit terrifying to play against because you're always worried that he's gonna he's gonna lay some wood on you to his talents off the court. And I think all the guys feel the same way in terms of energy. He's the heart and soul of this team, and you just can't replace what he brings. His biggest contribution, as well as he played against Utah Valley, his biggest contribution to the team might have been in the locker room before the game, just getting the guys hyped up. And he just is the heart and soul of this group.
And he's got skills that every coach would love to have in a big. He's good around the basket, and he's tenacious, of course, what you want. But he can finish. Love the way he plays.
Yeah, he's got big-time feet and big-time hands and big-time physicality, and he rebounds with 2 hands, as you've seen, especially over the last couple games. And his feet are really good defensively. We can put him in all kind of defensive coverages, the ball screens and one-on-one and in the post. And he even had a couple possessions where he was taking a guard in transition, a guard forward pushing the ball. So he's doing a lot for us, and he's a huge part of everything we do.
All right, from Cougar Q&A to social media Q&A for Coach Pope, it's presented by Smith's, fresh for everyone. Let's go to Twitter and take a look at Mike Sorensen's question. He says, with Vanderbilt dropping out and BYU adding St. John's, how does this quick turnaround affect scouting and preparing for the week?
Yeah, so all 3 of my assistants were at the St. John's game tonight because we're all at the same venue. We can live scout, and so they were all there, and so we're kind of double timing on scouts right now. Coach Burgess left early because he's got tomorrow's scout against USC to present to the team, and they'll hash out a bunch of details tonight, late tonight on St. John's as we keep the teams focused on USC. And it's just how it happens. It's how it works in tournament play where you're going back-to-back games. And this is a huge challenge for our guys. It's, unlike tournaments, we're the only team of the two teams we're playing that's playing back-to-back games. And so that's a challenge that we welcome. Let's go. Let's just see how, this whole non-conference is to see what we're made of and what we can accomplish and to stretch us as far as we can to see where we need to grow. And certainly we're going to get that out here in the next 30 hours for sure.
Question number 2 coming our way from Kevin Farnsworth on Twitter. He asks, how much closer are you to a steady rotation and how many players does that look like? Also, how flexible will you be with changing the rotation up?
Kevin Farnsworth, what's up, baby? So that's a great question. I think we're going to see this rotation change a lot. One of the great things about having depth and really versatile players is that we can actually approach situational basketball and game-by-game matchups a little bit different. I think we'll have some real consistency, especially with our 3 seniors. Those guys are going to be in the mix all the time. And I think with the ebb and flow of minutes and fatigue and injury and the teams we're playing against, I think we'll rotate through a lot of different guys. I would love it if I was a great coach, we could play 11 or 12 guys. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that consistently, but it sure is a weapon, man. When you have a whole host of guys coming off the bench that are capable to come into the game and make an impact and bring a different feel of flow and effectiveness of the game, it makes really, really for a tough out for a team that's really tough to play against. And so we're hoping to be that team.
Question number 3, our final question on social media tonight for Coach Pope. The question comes from Robert Johnson, who asks, how is Sister Ella Pope doing in the mission field?
Yeah, thanks for asking. She's doing amazing. We actually, 2 weeks ago, we got to do a Zoom fireside together for a steak in California. Go figure. She's in Florida. But she's just like all these missionaries that are out right now. She's facing new, uncharted challenges, and she's being really blessed as she does that. She's had an incredible opportunity to serve and to teach and to love people, and that's why she went on her mission. And she's getting a full plate of that right now. So she's been really blessed. Thanks for asking.
All right, all the best to Sister Pope and the entire Pope family. All right, special announcement for you coming up on December 12th. A show you will not want to miss. The top 100 plays in BYU football history. Join Spencer Linton and Jerem Jordan as they take Cougar fans on a journey of gridiron grandeur. Coming up next, we'll visit live with BYU big man Matt Harms, live from the Mohegan Sun Resort in Connecticut. This is BYU Basketball with Mark Pope. Jesse Wade spins away from Overton, lobs it low to Harms, who hammers it home. So the dunk for Matt Harms, his first 2 points as a Cougar come on a slam.
Wade, shot clock's at 10. Here's Harms.
Boy, he did really well reading the defense that time. Just this classic pick and roll.
Welcome back to BYU Basketball with Mark Pope, presented by Siegfried and Jensen. Well, in the days and weeks following the cancellation of the NCAA tournament back in the spring, one of the few bright spots for BYU basketball came in the form of a phone call to Coach Pope from our special guest tonight. He is Matt Harms, joining us here at the Mohegan Sun Resort in Connecticut. Matt, good to have you on tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's start with that. Can you tell us about that phone call back in the spring?
No, that was a really fun phone call to make. I remember it was my birthday that day, and that morning I'd received an awesome video from all the coaches singing happy birthday to me. They had a cake there. They all, enjoyed the cake. I obviously was looking on as they were enjoying it, singing happy birthday. And I kind of decided when I woke up, I kind of knew I was wanting to go to BYU. I'd kind of known for the past few days, but I wanted to be 100% sure. So in the afternoon, Coach Pope called me. He actually called me first, and we just kind of talked for a little bit. And I wanted to be like, I wasn't 100% sure yet. I was only like 99.9% sure. So I didn't want to say it then. But he hung up the phone, and then like 30 minutes later, I was like, you know what? I just got to do this right now. So I called him, and I told him right there. And I remember he was with two of his daughters. He was in the car, and he just went crazy, and they all went crazy. And it was such an awesome, awesome moment. I'll definitely cherish that.
It's a question you obviously had to answer for yourself first, but if you could answer it for our viewers now, the question is simply, why BYU for you?
Man, it's hard to explain. I've been trying to explain this for so long, but it's so tough because it was just felt right. You know, every time I explain the way I conducted my process, it's so analytical, and it was sitting there with the notebook and writing out pros and cons and making an Excel spreadsheet with everything, every factor that could be, construed. But then in the end, it was the Monday before I committed, and I was like, I just really want to go to BYU. And all the spreadsheets, I threw that all out. I was like, I'll delete this spreadsheet stuff. I'd throw the notebook out the window. I just want to go play for Mark Pope at BYU. And it was that easy in the end. And when I woke up on Wednesday, that was my birthday, I was like, this is what I want to do, and this is what I've been wanting to do for the past 3 days, so I'm just going to go and do it.
So if you were breaking down Coach Pope's attributes in the spreadsheet or the notebook, what's that going to look like?
Man, it's just energy at all times, high energy, just that relentless effort that we always preach here. That's part of our culture. That was really it, just making sure that if I had any question, it would be answered. If there was anything I needed to know, I would know that day. I would know. All my questions were just always answered. There was just so much to learn. It was probably the school in my recruiting process that I learned the most from, and I was like, that's so important for me, because I felt I was in a spot where I didn't just need an opportunity. I need to actually get better. I need someone that I could really get better every single day, and that was it. I felt that if I'm being recruited and I'm already learning this much, I'm learning this much about advanced stats, I'm learning about how they've done with the guys that they had on the team last year. If I'm already learning so much now, imagine how much I'm going to learn once I'm actually on the team and in the gym.
Coach Pope, back in the day, in his NBA days, played with a guy nicknamed the Dunking Dutchman. That's Rick Smits. What does the Rick Smits name mean to people in the Netherlands, or where you're from? And does the Harms family and the Smits family have any kind of connection?
It means a lot. That name means a lot back home. He's probably the greatest Dutch basketball player of all time. Not even probably, definitely. So I do personally know him. He's been in touch over the years as I've gone through my journey here in the States, and it's been really awesome. I actually got to meet him last year when Purdue played Butler somewhere in December. We played him for the Crossroads Classic, and I actually got to meet him since his son Derek played for Butler at the time. So that was a really awesome experience being able to meet him. He's been really kind to me. He's always reached out. He reached out when I committed to BYU to congratulate me. So it's been really fun being able to know him, and special as well, because when you start basketball in the Netherlands, that's the guy you hear about. He's the guy that's been most successful in the NBA out of any Dutch player.
All right, let's flash forward. The BYU season was just about to begin, and you're playing really well in practice. Things are going well, and then, like a week before the season starts, a week and a half, you find yourself, let's say, hobbled. Tell us about what happened that day and how concerned you were about not being able to start your season on time.
Man, it was terrifying for a little bit. It was at the end of a practice. I remember, it's like 4 p.m. We're going into our last drill. It's Coach Pope said last segment. The past 4 segments, he's been like last segment. So I'm that last play, I'm just coming down on someone's foot, and I just sprained my ankle for the first time. I'd never sprained my ankle before that, which is crazy. Playing basketball, never spraining your ankle. But it happened there. It hurt a lot. So I was a little scared. I'd never felt that before. And it was definitely scary as well to have to know that, I was maybe not going to be able to play the first game, which I really never knew in a position. I had a concussion last year, which caused me to miss some games at Purdue, but I'd never really had an injury that caused me to miss games. So it was a little scary, but we have a great training staff, so they helped me out every step of the way.
You missed the first 2 games, but you did get on the floor for the 3rd game on the weekend, and they probably played you maybe 2.5 minutes longer than they thought they might. How did it feel to finally get back out on the floor and prove to yourself that you could give it a full go and come out of it okay?
Oh, it was awesome. I was a little worried, of course, going into it. It was really my first time going like full action, like 100% again. I'd really worked out and I'd practiced and that kind of stuff, but just going into a game is always a little different. So I was a little worried, of course, but going into it, it felt so good. I felt really loose. And then going into halftime, I got a little worried again. I was like, what if it, seizes up on me? What if it slows down? But it really didn't. It just kept feeling good all the way through. And I was upset when I went out, walked off the court, and our trainer was like, yo, you're done. Your restriction is up. But then, Coach Pope saved me, and he gave me 2 more minutes and 15 seconds. And I was just having the time of my life out there. So good to be back out there. Even though only missing 2 games, it was really tough to miss those games.
Okay, life in Bubbleville so far for you and the guys. How's it going?
Bubbleville has been really fun. It's been really cool to see how they're really keeping us safe. There's a lot of teams here. There's traces of teams everywhere. There's little signs like, Virginia Tech, and there's like all these other schools, and you're like, well, where are they? You don't see any of them. It's very interesting. So it's definitely doing a great job to keep us all safe. The protocols are in place. We're testing all the time. Just to make sure we can play these games. I really appreciate that, because I think these tournaments are always such a crucial part of the season where you can really establish yourself, play some very quality games, which we're going to do these next 2 days. We're going to play some awesome games, and it's all possible because of these great protocols.
All right, finally, fun fact. Matt is short for nothing. You are just Matt. You're not Matthew. You're Matt Harms. That is all.
That is it, My credentials here actually say Matthew, which everything has always said
which
Matthew.
Is wrong.
I always have to be. It's wrong. Yeah, it is wrong. And I always have to say, hey, it's just Matt. I still don't know why my parents did that. There must be some good reason behind it, but it's just Matt. It's no middle name either. It's just Matt Harms. That's it. Very short, very easy to remember.
Matt, always good to be with you. Good luck this week, and we'll see you on the floor tomorrow.
Thank you. I'm excited to play.
All right, that is Matt Harms leading us to break. And as we go to break, time for some more BYU basketball trivia presented by the BYU Store. And we know that Matt's going to block a few shots in BYU blue. Who holds the BYU career record for most blocked shots? The answer coming up right after this. Back on BYU basketball with Mark Pope coming your way live from the Mohegan Sun here in Connecticut. And tonight's trivia question, who holds the BYU career record for most blocked shots? The answer is Greg Kite, former NBAer. Sean Bradley had an amazing 1 year, but Greg Kite had an amazing BYU career, 208 block shots. Let's get to our broadcast schedule for the week. 3 games in 5 days for BYU starting tomorrow. The Cougars against USC in the Roman Legends Classic here at Mohegan Sun. It'll be a 2:30 Eastern Time tip, 12:30 in the Mountain Time Zone, and the radio pregame 1 hour before tip with the game televised on ESPN2. Well, back a few weeks ago when BYUtv televised a BYU basketball practice, we caught up with, Coach Pope's former college coach Rick Pitino to tell us a little bit about Coach Pope's style, if you will, and his mannerisms. One in particular that stood out. Let's flash back and take a look.
But Mark was a very spiritual young man, and I laughed because he would never curse in practice. I had a tendency once in a while, not often, to say a swear word. And Mark would always say the word frig. If he did something wrong, he would say frig. And finally, we had a bad few turnovers, and Mark said the word frig again. I said, Mark, either don't say that word ever again or say the real word, because God knows exactly what you mean every time you say the word frig. So don't do it again, because God knows. He looked at me and he never said frig again.
We're doing a great job guarding the post right now, a great freaking job. All right? On these rolls, I want you to go dunk the freaking ball or get it quick. I don't recognize anything we're doing. It's freaking pistol.
Yeah, you never said it again.
Well, listen, first of all, I love Coach Pitino so much, but the funniest thing he said was that something to the effect of, on rare occasion, that he might actually verbalize the next one. I'm like, Coach, who are we talking about here? But I love him dearly, and we're all doing the best we can to communicate the best we can. So it's a challenge and an art.
Well, one of the great things about having our second show of the season is that during the first show, we had nothing to see yet to put in the What Happened segment. And so now that we've played some games, we can finally reintroduce to our viewers the ever-popular segment here on the Pope Show. It's what happened? All right, it's the pump fake on the free throw.
Really, really interesting shooting style. You know, we had no game tape on New Orleans, and this is actually a junior college transfer, so we didn't have any film on him. But this was really confusing, the free throw pump fake. But the ref said, as long as it's part of your normal shot, it's legal. So we all tried to figure it out.
Yeah, and his teammates are still trying to figure it out, which is the craziest thing. All right, next up, not everybody in the audience is going to know the name Curly Neal, but one of the great Harlem Globetrotters of all time was Curly Neal, and I got a Curly Neal vibe out of this from Brandon Averett the other this is a real important principle for us, is keep your dribble alive. It just becomes nearly impossible to guard. It just is so hard because what you're doing is in one step across the midline, everybody in one step with the ball, you have to completely flip your defense from strong side to weak side. So if you see this, as Brandon comes around the second time, he's got a wide open corner here. He also has Rich right behind him. It just is so disoriented defense. It's really, really, really tough to guard. So not only is it fun to watch, it's really tactical, and BA does it really well.
Yes, it is.
And our last clip in what happened is the fact that BYU had not one but two loners in the building on the weekend. The one loner was Caleb Lohner. The second loner was Spencer Linton, the man in the stands by himself.
You know, people might think that these media jobs are all glitz and glamour, but it's a lot of hard work and some lonely nights. And that's a perfect picture of Spence. He does such a great job, but he was sitting there carrying the torch all by himself in the bleachers that night.
All right, we have 60 seconds left on the show. The show began with Coach Pope not being able to hear me and yet carrying the show on his own by sensing exactly what he needed to do. That was a great moment and reminded me so much of why it is that I appreciate Coach Mark Pope. And show number 2 is almost in the books, Coach. Let's send it out by you. With a shout out to Cougar Nation maybe and how they supported you and have supported you through these first few games.
Yeah, it's been really awesome. Seeing everybody on the fan video board, all you guys that are jumping on there during the game, we can actually see you and see your reaction. It brings some energy into the gym. We're so grateful for that. And we just hope you guys stay with us this week. I don't know if it gets any harder than this week. So let's go, Cougs.
We will see you next Tuesday at 8:30 Eastern, back home in Studio C. For Matt Harms and Coach Pope, I'm Greg Wrubell. Thanking you for tuning in live from the Mohegan Sun Resort in Connecticut. This has been BYU Basketball with Mark Pope. Have a great week. Go Cougs.